Smoke from the train gulf, hid by hoardings, blunders upward. The brakes of cars pipe as the policeman pivoting round raises his flat hand, bars with his figure of a monolith pharaoh the queue of fidgety machines, chromium dogs on the bonnet, faces behind the triplex screens. Behind him the streets run away between the proud glass of shops, cubicle scent bottles, artificial legs, Arctic foxes and electric mops. But beyond this centre, the slumward vista thins like a diagram. There, unvisited, are Vulcan's forges, who doesn't care a tinker's damn. Splayed outwards through the suburbs, houses for rest, seducingly rigged by the builder, half-timbered houses with lips pressed so tightly and eyes staring at the traffic through bleary haws, and only a 6-inch grip of the racing earth in their concrete claws. In these houses, men, as in a dream, pursue the platonic forms with wireless and cairn terriers and gadgets approximating to the fickle norms, and endeavour to find God and score one over the neighbour by climbing tentatively upward on jerry-built beauty and sweated labour. The lunch hour. The shop's empty. Shop girls' faces relax, diaphanous as green glass, empty as old almanacs, as incoherent with ticketed gewgaws tiered behind their heads as the Burne-Jones windows in St. Philip's broken by crawling leads, insipid colour, patches of emotion, Saturday thrills. This theatre is sprayed with June. The gutter take our old playbills. Next weekend, it is likely, in the Hearts Funfair, we shall pull strong enough on the handle to get back our money. Or at any rate, it is possible. On shining lines, the trams like vast sarcophagi move into the sky, plumb after sunset, merging to duck's egg, barred with mauve zeppelin clouds, and Pentecost-like, the car's headlights bud out from side roads, and the traffic signals, creme de menthe or bull's blood, tell one to stop, the engine gently breathing, or to go on, to wear like black pipes of organs in the frayed and fading zone of the west. The factory chimneys on sullen sentry will all night wait to call. In the harsh morning, sleep-stupid faces through the daily gate. Thank you very much. That poem is called Birmingham. I was addressing Birmingham, of course, when I opened there, but it is called Birmingham, and it's by Louis MacNeice, who was a lecturer at the University of Birmingham in the 30s for 6 years. And you'll probably have detected a few things that have passed from our current cityscape, but nonetheless rendered very strikingly in that poem. Welcome again to tonight's event, run by the Institute of Creative and Critical Writing, Birmingham City University, which exists to promote the literary arts and the life of ideas. And that's what we're doing tonight with a programme in keeping with the theme of this year's Frontiers Festival. So we're bringing you the beats, bringing the beats to Birmingham, but also it's a celebration of the poetry of city life. So we've got a fusion of these things in our programme. I'm going to introduce our readers now, all together, and then they're going to come up in this order. Initially, we have Bogdan Piasecki, poet and performer extraordinaire. He's the director of Apples and Snakes West Midlands, and he also curates the Hit the Ode monthly event for us here in the city. Next, we've got Derek Littlewood, poet and lecturer in English literature at Birmingham City University. Next, we have Roy McFarlane. He's lurking behind the red chair. He's got the throne, actually. Roy's done well, because he was actually Birmingham Poet Laureate. It's quite fitting. He was Birmingham Poet Laureate 2010 to 11, and of course was a student with us at Birmingham City University on our MA. Next we have Benjamin Titmus, and he is currently doing the MA with us at the university, and Ben's just had some competition success. he was highly commended in the Poetry Book Society student poetry competition. So well done to Ben. Then we have James Horrocks, who achieved a distinction on the MA in writing. There's a theme here, isn't there? On the MA in writing with us, and is now studying for a PhD in creative writing. And then finally we have Luke Kennard, who is a lecturer at the other place, the University of Birmingham, like McNeice, looking after creative writing there. And Luke is an award-winning poet of 5 superb poetry collections, so you've got a real feast of poetry coming up. And with that, I will hand straight over to Bogdan. Please welcome him.
Hello. One person answered. Everybody else is intent on convincing me that I'm just here by myself, speaking to myself. Just another Friday afternoon. So, yes, my name is Bogdan Piasecki, and that's because I come from Poland. And true to the Poles' stated vision of coming over here and stealing your poetry event slots. I'm from a generation that still knew a bit of good old communist Poland, so I thought I'd open with a poem by Lawrence Ferlinghetti called 1,000 Fearful Words for Fidel Castro. I'm sitting in Mike's place trying to figure out what's going to happen without Fidel Castro. Among the salami sandwiches and spittoons, I see no solution. It's going to be a tragedy. I see no way out among the admin and the slumming muddles and the brilliant snooping columnists who are qualified to call Castro psychotic because they no doubt are doctors and have examined him personally, and are also qualified to call him communist with a capital C because they know the difference between Soviet communism, which put the slave back in Slavic, and socialism with a small c, and also know a paranoid hysterical tyrant when they see one because they have it on first hand from personal observation by the CIA and the great disinterested news services, and Hearst is dead, but his great Cuban wire still stands. You get the pictures. I'll make the war. I see no answer. I see no way out amongst the paisanos playing pool. It looks like curtains for Fidel. They're going to fix his wagon in the course of human events. In the back of Mike's, the pinball machines shudder and leap from the floor when Cuban Charlie shakes them and tries to work his will on one named Independence Sweepstakes. And each pinball wandered lonely as a man siphons through and sinks no matter how he twists and turns, and a billiard ball falls in a felt pocket like a peasant in a green landscape. You're whirling around in your little hall, Fidel, and you'll soon sink in the course of human events. And on the Nickelodeon cowboy ballad groans, got myself a Cadillac, the cowhand moans. He didn't get it in Cuba, baby. Outside in the night of North Beach, America, the new North American cars flick by from Motorama, their headlights never bright enough to dispel this night in the course of human events. So that's Ferlinghetti. Now, as Greg said, I do a lot of spoken word poetry that's meant to be heard before it's read. And there's a lot of similarities between what the Beats did and what spoken word poets do. Even though the poem I'm going to share with you now doesn't reference jazz, because it goes back to when I was an adolescent and I wasn't listening to jazz then. I was listening to everything MTV was showing, because after '89 we suddenly got hit by all of Western culture. And we accepted all of Western culture, indiscriminately. So it included some wonderful things, and also stuff like Dungeons and Dragons, which I really got into for a while, and I'm finally secure enough to admit it. And hip hop, and I'm sure you're all a big hip hop crowd. So this poem has a refrain that's taken from a hip hop song, and that you've definitely heard, even if you've never consciously decided that I'm going to listen to some hip hop now. And the title is as follows: That's just the way it is. Open brackets. Things will never be the same. Close brackets. In a room with custard yellow walls, my sister is sleeping. A nurse is sweeping up the remnants of a broken light bulb and smells of disinfectant, which reminds me of our school cafeteria. It annoys me that I do not find this unpleasant. Earlier, my friend and I skipped class. We sat on our basketballs behind the row of strip clubs at the mini mall and share a pair of headphones as we tried to rewind a cassette tape with a pencil to save the batteries in the Sony Walkman I had stolen from my sister. We nodded sagely at the same time, with the Maudlin piano riff finally got savaged by the beat, and we pretended like we knew what the words meant when the man finally said, "I see no changes." And immediately the sun came out, and there were girls draped across the back doors to the strip clubs like string curtains, their outfits stripped of provocation by their manner. They drank tea. They talked too loudly, and we could smell their perfume on each other. They yelled at us. "Are you boys lost? You're waiting for someone to pick you up?" And their shops were dingy, dark and cheap, but we had teachers to placate and a game of basketball to play, so we kept the headphones in as we walked away. Turned the volume up. I see no changes. I wake up every morning and I ask myself, is life worth living? Something self. My English was getting better, but I could still only watch the NBA on German cable. Und Scottie Pippen wirft den Ball zu Michael Jordan und beendet das Spiel mit einem Slam Dunk was little help. But I had to know. Lyrics were currency to me, so no excuses. Tape out, pencil in, wind it back, listen again and try to discern the words through the whir of the tramway as you wobble your way back to school. I see no changes. I wake up every morning and I ask myself, is life worth living? Yeah, I was pretty sure that was right. I just hadn't figured out what came next. But no matter. The game that afternoon was perfect. Last quarter, they make a careless pass. Steal, lob, then pause for breath. Catch, one dribble, 2 steps, rise up, slam. Now resist the urge to pound your chest when you land. Instead, just catch her eye on the way back like it's nothing. Catch a whiff of the perfume from earlier on your jersey. Catch a snippet of your song blaring from the PA. I see no changes. In the room with custard yellow walls, my sister is smiling with her eyes still closed. The nurse finally leaves, his dustpan full of transparent eggshells. My parents are oddly angled pot plants. I stare at my high tops. On the floor next to the right one, there's a brown spot. I say, I have to go to the bathroom, and then I linger in the corridor like my sister's room is physics. Glass has sharp edges. Surely they know that, but I have other mysteries to resolve, like what is it that they made that perfume from, or what are the words that he says at the start of that song? So one last time, take out the tape, put the pencil in and twirl it over your head like a prayer mill. And here's that piano riff, here's that beat, now concentrate. What do you hear? Lubię siedzieć i słuchać słów suchych i szybkich, przez słów szept i szelest, jak przez szklane szybki okien, podglądać zaskoczonym wzrokiem, jak wszystko wokół tonie pod rwącym potokiem słów, jak pod bokiem rośnie powódź brzmień, dość kantów zgrzytów są grzmitów brzmień, tak placzeka codziennie bardziej wzrasta, dzień fali słów wyższej niż najwyższe domy miasta, dzień ciszy, nie przebije chmury brzmień, wiesz, ja boję się ciszy i nawet gdy nikt nie słyszy nic, ja chowam się w słowa, którymi kipi moja głowa, mój mózg gniewnie opada w dół, pewnie trzeba mu cieniem giełku dnu, na nie zgiełku tu, gdzie jest hałas, gdzie dzisiaj nigdy nie zaświtało, ja w mętnym szumie zasłyszanych dźwięków pławię się sam spokojny, bez lęku i w ciszy, cichszej niż najcichsze, cisze. Echo pierwszego słowa zawsze słyszę. Thank you. Thank you. That's Polish. That was Polish, the last bit, which I'm sure you know, seeing as it is now the second most spoken language in the UK. It is. If you did not understand the word I said, get with the program. They have a few more shorter poems. I've got another one from the actual beats from Gary Snyder. And this is a very brief one, and it reflects one of my favorite things that Beats did, which is shamelessly steal from Eastern mysticism and from Japan, and they wrote things that were vaguely like haiku, but not quite like haiku, huge liberties with them, and it was just beautiful. So this is a poem called Higashi Honwanji, and it goes like this. In a quiet, dusty corner on the north porch, some farmers eating lunch on the steps, up high behind a beam. A small carved wood panel of leaves, twisting tree trunk, ivy, and a sleek fine-haired doe, and a 6-point buck in front, head crooked back, watching her. The great tile roof sweeps up and floats a grey shale mountain over the town. And this is one of mine. It is called Untitled because it does not have a title. Snug in the driver's seat, I gaze across the road. The engine idles and no one else is here. It's dark, it's late, it's raining. The rain falls in staccato waves, following a pattern I do not recognize. Now the street I know quite well. I've lived here all my life, or so it feels, but the beat that drops play on my car is alien. And to my right, there is another street, some shimmering lights and a sign illegible in the wet and stirring dark. I never go there. It isn't on my way to anywhere. And the lights flicker and flash, reflected on the road, and elegantly something moves behind them. Well, anyway, be home soon. The radio crackles and the rain beat turns to hiss. Thank you. And because this is going to be my last poem, thank you very much, Greg, for inviting me, and thank you for listening. Because the theme is the poems and the city and so on. This is the last bit. I'll do a poem from a sequence of poems I wrote was commissioned by Radio Free, because, like I said, there's more than one way to come over here and steal your jobs. It maps what happened to my uncle, whom I never met, for reasons which will become apparent, and it maps it onto the place I'm from, which is Warsaw, in Poland. And I had to force myself to pronounce the name with a vaguely English accent, because it sounds very much like Walsall. A place I did not know existed, and for the first year or so I spent in the West Midlands, and which led to very confusing conversations. We own a flat in Warsaw, but you just came over. Yes, but that's where I'm from. You're from Warsaw, I thought you were from Poland. Endless hours of good, clean family fun. So for a while I did Warsaw, just to avoid confusion. The poem will probably answer the question. The question was, why did I never meet my uncle? And it's called Lazy Filmmaking. I hope you enjoy. We open on the bird's eye view, and the set is shoddy. Houses are shells with frames for windows. There are stacks of bricks everywhere, clearly visible in most shots. The pothole patterns are too regular. The color of the asphalt is unconvincing, and the pavement slabs are shaped like hexagons. Now, this city was clearly a rush job. So we cut to street level. If this could have a soundtrack, it would be Orff's Carmina Burana, or that song from Requiem for a Dream, something to make this busy intersection appear menacing and render chance pedestrians ominous. The operator went for green-tinged filters, skipped frames to make the footage stutter, zoomed in on ugly details, used no tripod and overexposed the sky. The camera lingers for a moment and then starts moving towards the door on the other side of the street as we cut away. Elsewhere, a man stands on the bridge, forlorn in black tie, gazing at the ripples from where he dropped the ring into the river. Elsewhere, a couple who have just had sex exchange unlikely, witty quips under demurely L-shaped sheets. Elsewhere, an underdog, his square jaw set, is rubbing the ropes he had been tied up with on fragments of a broken bottle, or trying to pick the lock on his handcuffs with a hairpin. Elsewhere, violins. The music swells and someone whispers, "It's you, baby, it's always been you," without a hint of irony. So we cut back. We're at another door. Unplaned planks this time, and there may be splinters on the cement floor, but still no real attention to detail. There should be sweat stains on the shirt. And the collar should have yellowed. This room is, after all, a toilet, and the boy is sitting on the floor. There is dust on his hair and eyelids, like on small-town museum exhibits, and we get nothing. You know, not a single thing to make it any easier to suspend our disbelief. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Derek. I'm going to read 4 poems. The first poem is by the American beat poet Jackson McLow, and this is for Ed, who asked for it. Well, not this particular poem, but anyway, there are the mention of assassin bugs. They're an American creature who sucks the juice out of spiders. There are 7 varieties of European assassin bugs as well, so maybe with the warm weather we can expect to see some. And Simicidae are bed bugs. Yeah, something else to look forward to with global warming. This poem is clearly a procedural one. He's used a mathematical process to pick the language out of books on insects and make a poem out of it. It's called Insect Assassins. Injects, no survive. Efforts control the animals survive. Survive, animals survive. Survive, injects, no survive. In nasty spitting eye cost, this assassin, spitting assassin, spitting, in nasty spitting, insectivorous nutriments, species encounter. Charles II, are species, insectivorous nutriment species into notoriety? Sweeping Eastern capture testimony, a sweeping into notoriety. Sweeping, interest nervous succumb easily, composed tube. Adhesive, succumb, adhesive, succumb, interest nervous succumb.
Good afternoon to all our customers and visitors to the library today. The new Library of Culture's free exhibition is open in the gallery on floor 3. The exhibition is showcasing for the first time some of the highlights of the Library of Birmingham's extensive collection. The Library of Culture takes you on journeys exploring different countries and cultures with photographs, artefacts and documents revealing lives and cultures from around the world. On display is James Audubon's Birds of America, our largest and most famous. Please feel free to pop in and have a look around. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. The beauty of the chance encounter. Where were we with those insect assassins? Ichneia spider. East closes thorax. And spider, spider, and spider, spider, Ichneia spider, its needle. Specialized, enlarged, cutting tough. A specialized, specialized, a specialized, specialized, its needle, specialized. Is non-toxic secretion, extremely contains that. Assassin bug secretion. Secretion, assassin bug secretion. Secretion is non-toxic secretion. Eye, needle-like snake. Enzymes compound. Tender anchoring snake. Snake, anchoring snake. Snake. Eye, needle-like snake. Inlet, not significant. Effect, cockroach. Thus, about significant, significant, about significant, significant, inlet, not significant, insect, natural, surround, enzyme, constituents, time, after surround, surround, after surround, surround, insect, natural, surround, internal nerve, sucks, especially contents through, against, sucks, sucks, against, sucks, sucks, internal nerve, sucks, immediate now share, extinguishing, controlling them, arises, share, share, arises, share, share, immediate now share, insecticide, needs, sap, episode, simicide, thoroughly attributed, sap, sap, attributed, sap, sap, insecticide, needs, sap, insects, numbing seconds, each channels, they accordingly seconds, seconds, accordingly seconds, seconds, insects, numbing seconds. Thank you. And now, a very different poem, a very different kind of beat poem, a lyrical one from Roy Fisher, a Handsworth boy who taught in Bawdsey College of Education, one of the constituent colleges of what became the Polytechnic and then Birmingham City University, and still alive and writing poetry and reading it sometimes. And this is a lyric one. On the open side, look out for sun patches of sea blue. If you see them, it's beginning to shift, with factory towers along the edge, chalk white and silver, empty even of machines. The other life, the endless other life, endless beyond the beginning, that holds and suddenly presents a sunny day 20 years ago, the open window of a train held up on an embankment for an hour. Down the field, there were children playing around a concrete garage. That was all. Something the other life wanted. I hadn't kept it. But look out for the sea blue patches. They'll not make problems. And this is my own poem that recognises listening to Roy Fisher play jazz piano. I had no idea that he was a poet and hadn't read any, but I lived in Bearwood where he played for many years. This is called Jump Cut. think I saw Roy Fisher play piano with Andy Hamilton on horn. Orocabessa, I guess, that's in Jamaica, playing at the Bear in Smethwick on the edge of a city. Eulogy to a great city Roy couldn't name. Too uncool. Didn't know the piano player was a poet science-man. Down Starbridge Canal from Black Delph Bridge to Wordsley Junction. At Red House, curve of brick, 90 foot of cone, where Frank Deuce with cool concentration picks a blob of glass from the glory hole, balloons his cheeks, then trumpets a fiery music, a Bristol blue bubble in the lee of words. Walk the towpath or leg over the road to White House glass cone, its vanished twin. Did the Taj Mahal have a black companion, or was this a trick of the light, reflection in a pool? Draw breath, listen to ghost words as the glass cools in the lair while the city talks at night as we sleep. In the old days, you could get a ghost bus from the centre of town, the number 6 to Bearwood, which would take you out of the city into the edge of the Black Country, Smethwick. So you'll hear plenty of Black Country words in this, and maybe some Romany ones as well. A whammel is a mongrel dog. Rude spike for Woden. Coal, iron, lime and sand cop off together in our black land. Black country born and black country inbred, strong in the arm and soft in the head. Blackland, Cackland, Lackland, Blokeland, Bleakland. It ain't called the Black Country because it's overrun with immigrants neither, despite what Enoch with his dog tags inscribed. Das Reich might whine, his stuff is snarling on choke chains. A guttural gutter spike. They do out their mouths. Yo, bye from round here, bin yo? This coward miskin. Don't go there. Kids will all have the wheels off of your car. Side and spike. You'd think they come from the Crooked House or Caloid, all undermined, knackered in the vernacular. Proper Black Country, dark satanic mills in the Black Country, steels long gone from the Bright Country, more like the Broad Country. Well, I'll get in the raking, Bob Howler, fluttering afore your face. These days, peppered moths are more wan than dark. I don't live there no more. Out in Worcestershire, we keeps out the Oss Road and plays with osses instead. We lives near the cut, but we ain't got no fly boat, no butty boat, working for a sailing boat. A wayfarer, perhaps. Once, blocks and engineers blew bricks on the pavements. Now tarmac over with the black stuff or sold for salvage. No unforged chain at Noah Bloomers, all welded now. There ain't no bags of swarf welded on the wharf of the cut. Charlie Chaplin, it was writ, was born in Nevada at Black Patch Park, Smethwick. They kept it quiet. Is Black Patch still an H in town? I'm Smethwick myself, the place of the Smiths, the smooth place. Smethwick, metal bashers all. It takes a woot steel billet to forge Damascus blade. My mother's grandmother, Sarah Mariah, her was born on a canal barge at Titton Basin, and her was a bargee, and her signed her marriage lines with a cross. Travelling folk all. As to me father's father, he owned a manufactory, and he showed bulldogs. Some won medals and a silver spoon, but he had another family in Kinver Edge, not in a cave, but on a farm. He big amorously commuted by train between kith and kin. They kept it close. As for me father, he served his time in the tool room, machine setter, then foreman for Chamberlain and Hookham. I have in my hand a piece of paper. I don't learn no metal skills from him though. He died afore I was one. I were in a field in the Ruhr, Recklinghausen, 'cause our cocks thought we'd feel at home there first time abroad in the reek of the smelter. And Rencher, skin-head, hard, mad bastard, best avoided, he were working his pencil over a postcard to his mother, proper mithered, sweating cobs, worthing his tongue to the shape of the letters. He up and asked me how to spell writ, as in, I writ to our kid's sister, skin and blister. He don't believe me when I said not writ, but wrote. Afore he could give me a cog winder like the Tipton slasher, at last I spelt it out. W-R-I-T, a rune, a black metal tune. A few years later, I heard as Rencher went doolally. He burned down the school. Yam, yam, yampy, he got a touch of the doolally tap. A souvenir of the British in India, Hobson Jobson, from Delali. The transit camp before they come home, if the poor buggers ever did. Rencher, he died. He hung himself by night in his cell. I disremember his first name. It could have been Wammel. Under the wren's nest there's caves now fenced off by the council, all undermined by underground workings, but if you're lucky on the hill, you could find a Dudley bug, a trilobite, still shiny black as a rainy bat, the fossil remains of a proud culture. There were some fine ones in Dudley Museum, but they was nicked. On a clear day, they reckon you can see the raking across the dereliction. You can make a knife out of an old bastard file if you have the skills to reforge. A tool, not a weapon. Despite double metalwork, I call. But I made this rune spike and give it an edge. Between Wensfield and Wensbury on the Woden Road, I whipped this Wednesday. Burn this in remembrance of me.
How do you follow that? Somebody from Poland and somebody from the Black Country. I'm just playing old Brummy, innit? But there we go. I could drop a bit of patois. You probably wouldn't get that. Anyway, here we go. Of course, I never see a sister, I never see a dear. Anyway, this one I'm just going to share with one of the beat poets, somebody called Miri Baraka. Formerly known as Leroy Jones, very heavily involved in there. And I'm going to read from the book that he wrote during that period called Preface to a 20-volume Suicide Note. It's quite interesting. That was after times that the critics looked at Leroy Jones as really a really powerful literary individual. And it's after that period of time, he went to Cuba, I think around 1959. He met with a lot of third world poets. And again, with what was going on in America, there was this kind of real encouragement with the racism, with all the issues around America. All these third world poets and a lot of things kind of encouraged Leroy Jones, like, listen, why you're writing a certain way when you should be writing against racism, writing about black issues and things like that. And he said when Malcolm X died in 1965, that's when he left the beat poets, and that's when he started up a thing called the Black Arts Movement kind of thing, and changed his name to Miri Baraka. And a lot of critics says we lost a powerful poet when he moved over to the Black Arts Movement, but I thought he was on the road, a bit like Jack Kerouac, I guess. So I'm going to read two of his poems. preface to a 20-volume suicide note. Lately, I've become accustomed to the way the ground opens up and envelops me. Each time I go out to walk the dog, or the broad-edged silly music the wind makes when I run for the bus. Things have come to that. And now, each night, I count the stars, and each night I get the same number, and when they will not come to be counted, I count the holes they leave. Nobody sings anymore. And then last night, I tiptoed up to my daughter's room and heard her talking to someone, and when I opened the door, there was no one there, only she on her knees, peeking into her own clasped hands. Thank you. And this one's called In Memory of Radio, and I guess around the 60s he's mentioning a lot of powerful individuals. Lamont Cranston was the famous, I don't know if he was the actor or it was the name of the guy that played the Shadow, famous character that was always being played on the radio. Kate Smith was one of those opera singers that was renowned around that period of time. Oral Roberts, I'm sure some of you might know Oral Roberts, a famous preacher, really Pentecostal preacher. And F.J. Sheen, I think, was a Catholic preacher. So I think those are names you probably wouldn't understand or know. In memory of radio. Who has ever stopped to think of the divinity of Lamont Cranston? Only Jack Kerouac, that I know of, and me. The rest of you probably had on WCBS and Kate Smith or something equally unattractive. What can I say? It is better to have loved and lost than to put linoleum to your living rooms. Am I a sage or something? Mandrake's hypnotic gesture of the weak? Remember, I do not have the healing powers of Oral Roberts. I cannot, like F.J. Sheen, tell you how to get saved and rich. I cannot even order you to the gas chamber, Satori, like Hitler or Goldie Knight. And love is an evil word. Turn it backwards. See? See what I mean? An evil word. And besides, who understands it? I certainly wouldn't like to go out there on that kind of limb. Saturday mornings, we listen to the Red Lantern and his undersea folk at 11. Let's pretend, and we did, and I, the poet, still do, thank God. What was it he used to say? After the transformation, when he was safe and invisible, and the unbelievers couldn't throw stones. Who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men? The shadow knows. Oh yes, he does. Oh yes, he does. An evil word it is, this love. Okay, I'm looking for Steve. Steve, yeah, that's my man. This is a fantastic piano player, fantastic musician. We happened to be fortunate to work together in February. We were commissioned to do a Love in Leamington. And I'm going to share with this. This is my love for jazz. And the Beat generation were heavily influenced by jazz, especially the bebop crowd kind of thing. So you'll be hearing a lot of these names kind of thing. So I hope you enjoy. This was the 60s. Beatniks and bebops. Time of easy loving, drinking from each other, in the cool of the evening, transforming from the heat of raging riots, resting from the hate that hid in hidden heartbeats. And somewhere in a upper room, Monk is sitting, bowing his head, stomping his feet, tapping his finger, once away from the table in his pork pie hat. Lester is looking out the window for some long lost melody or waiting for Billie Holiday, because you know they don't talk no more. And Miles Davis, with his head bandaged and his jacket bloodstained, he's vexed, burning with rage long before he knocked out the police officer for beating him with a billy club, long before his veins were full of anger, long before the intravenous drip of drugs and sex and that never calmed him down. Dizzy laughing, eyes wide open, cheeks bloated, clowning around, trying to lighten the moment. Salt peanuts, where's the salt peanuts? But Miles is not feeling it, and Dizzy's losing it. And then we hear that beautiful medley, a love supreme, a love supreme, a love supreme, a love supreme, a love supreme. Our Blakey can't understand the fussing and fighting. Fire is what they want. Fire that washes the dust of everyday life. And Dexter Gordon, he's looking cool. He's dressed to the nines. He's already been locked up. And now he's running all the way to Paris, where he can play the music to those who listen with ears and not with their eyes. And Chet Baker, he's ultimate cool, keeping quiet, keeping time in his own mind, keeping out the way of Miles, since the New York Times made him the greatest trumpet player. And Chet's, well, he's just keeping time and keeping quiet. And there he goes again. Monk is walking around in a trance because he can hear a love supreme, a love supreme, a love supreme, a love supreme. Mingus and Miles, they're now brewing up a storm. Miles won't take no more shit, won't be called nigger no more. And Mingus is making fables and making bass lines that will change minds. And young Clifford Brown, he's blowing a horn like midnight is around the corner and like time was going to turn Judas upon their ass. And Bird has just walked in, late, lost, and out of it. Disheveled, with the devil on his back and in his veins. And so John Coltrane takes giant steps into the room, like they've all been waiting, making his presence known. Because John has been to Gethsemane and he's back. He saw what was on the horizon for you and for me, and all we need is a love supreme, a love supreme, a love supreme, and a love supreme. Thank you.
Hello everyone. I'm just going to say a quick thank you first, actually, because there's so many people here. This is fantastic to see. I'm just going to read some poems by Lawrence Ferlinghetti. The first one, which is called Two Scavengers in a Truck, Two Beautiful People in a Mercedes. It's quite close to my heart because it reminds me of secondary school, because it was in the AQA anthology. So I always find that quite amusing. Probably the only poem to come from school that I actually enjoy. At the stoplight, waiting for the light, 9 AM, downtown San Francisco. A bright yellow garbage truck with 2 garbage men in red plastic blazers, standing on the back stoop, one on each side, hanging on, and looking down into an elegant, open Mercedes, with an elegant couple in it. The man, in a hit 3-piece linen suit with shoulder-length blonde hair and sunglasses. The young blonde woman so casually coiffed, with a short skirt and coloured stockings, on the way to his architect's office. And the 2 scavengers, up since 4 AM, grungy from their route, on the way home. The older of the 2 with grey iron hair and hunched back, looking down like some gargoyle Quasimodo. And the younger of the 2, also with sunglasses and long hair, about the same age as the Mercedes driver. And both scavengers gazing down as from a great distance at the cool couple, as if they were watching some odourless TV ad in which everything is always possible. And the very red light for an instant, holding all 4 close together, as if anything at all were possible between them, across that small gulf in the high seas of this democracy. This is called the changing light, presumably about traffic lights. The changing light at San Francisco is none of your East Coast light, none of your pearly light of Paris. The light of San Francisco is a sea light, an island light. And the light of fog blanketing the hills, drifting in at night through the Golden Gate to lie on the city at dawn. And then the halcyon late mornings after the fog burns off and the sun paints white houses with the sea of light of Greece, with sharp clean shadows making the town look like it had just been painted. But the wind comes up at 4 o'clock, sweeping the hills, and then the veil of light of early evening, and then another scrim when the new fog floats in, and in that veil of light the city drifts, anchorless, upon the ocean. This final poem is called To the Oracle at Delphi, and Ferlinghetti actually read this out in Delphi at the UNESCO World Poetry Day. Great Oracle, why are you staring at me? Do I baffle you? Do I make you despair? I, Americus, the American, wrought from the dark in my mother long ago, from the dark of ancient Europa. Why are you staring at me now in the dusk of our civilization? Why are you staring at me as if I were America itself, the new empire, vaster than any in ancient days, with its electronic highways, carrying its corporate monoculture around the world, and English, the Latin of our days? Great Oracle, sleeping through the centuries, awaken now at last and tell us how to save us from ourselves, and how to survive our own rulers, who would make a plutocracy of our democracy in the great divide between the rich and the poor, in whom Walt Whitman heard America singing. O long silent Sibyl, you of the winged dreams, speak out from your temple of light as the serious constellations with great names still stare down on us as a lighthouse moves its megaphone over the sea. Speak out and shine upon us, the sea light of Greece, the diamond light of Greece. Far-seeing Sibyl, forever hidden, come out of your cave at last and speak to us in the poet's voice, the voice of the first person singular, the voice of the inscrutable future, the voice of the people mixed with a wild soft laughter. And give us new dreams to dream, give us new myths to live by. That's it, thank you.
Hi, you'll have to excuse me, I'm not used to mics this good, rooms this big, or audiences this sober. I'm James Horrocks, and I'm also Ted Bonham. Ted does most of the writing because he doesn't have any parents or supervisors to kill. But luckily he has my memories, so this poem is about my memories of being a teenager in Birmingham, sort of channeled through a translation I did of a Lorca poem. Neither me nor Ted speak Spanish, so I'm not sure how well that worked out. But it's of a poem that Lorca wrote whilst he was in New York in sort of 1930, sort of a generation before the Beats, and I think a lot of the Beats were influenced by Lorca as well. And it was at a time that he was finding, writing a lot about isolation and sort of the capitalist, materialist culture that he didn't like. And so this poem's about Coney. The poem I translated was about Coney Island and was called Landscape of the Vomiting Multitudes, which is a pretty excellent name. My poem's less imaginatively titled. It's called Birmingham. The fat lady sang first, raising the groove and the hairs on her arms and drawing the beat of the drums. The fat lady who sucks the centers from spiders and picks the legs from between her teeth. The fat lady, friend to everybody, waltzing through streets and once deserted factories and catching in corners the beautiful, ugly grins of lockjaw, raising the lusts of long-stale youth and summoning the devil of bass from the slopes of ecstasis, craving filtered light in subterranean circuits. They are cemeteries. I know they are cemeteries, and the haunting notes of a fat lady echoing amongst the pigeons and the cider of another time, reincarnating in the confusion Mike, who only knows where he is and how to get home by a finger he's marked on one hand, waving in the other a bottle of orange diluted from the myth of beetles and dripping into the overmade eyes of on the cusp of women, returning the barely suppressed grins of wee children of molten metal, arms over narrow shoulders and singing up at the fat lady, fermenting her fruit in the common room ceiling. And waiters serving half bottles of cheap whiskey into an open eye, and fake silver platters of sherbet and black absinthe snorted through straws until there's nothing else for it, son. Vomit. Ain't no other way. Not the vodka of Russians spilt on the tits of their dial-up pornography, not the sick of the cat that swallowed the frog, I don't know why, but her dirty fingers in the hidden doorways where clouds of cigarette smoke cleared to the stench of urine and stale beer. And oh man, how that fat kiddie wail, with the gravel of black country smokestacks, with the crowds from the brothels, the bars, and fucking snobs again. The vomit gently stirring the drums, the gurgle of barn and the bass, building to crescendo of the children of blood, breathless and sweating under no moon at all. And thus it came to pass that this look that was on my face but is no longer mine, this look she borrowed to tremble naked in alcohol, launching incredible barges through the locks of the canal. We fight with this look that flows from the waves that ebb into dawn. We, unknowing, without arms, adrift in our equal inexperience with only our horse's enthusiasm to crop the thick moss between our minds. Oh, and the fat lady sang last and loudest, and the crowd searched the pharmacies for the tropical wash of a bleached morning. And only when they raised the anchors and the first gods arrived, did the whole city gather together beneath our gaze at the railings of the new library. Thank you.
Wow, there's loads of people. Hi, hello, I haven't looked over my shoulder since I sat down. Hi there. It's really nice to be here. I'm Luke Kennard. It's a pleasure to be rounding off the first half of the proceedings. Today is the, if you were listening to the radio earlier, you might have heard that today is the 50th anniversary of the shopping mall, or shopping centre as we call them in this country, mall or mall if you're American. And yeah, I have a poem called 5 Poems for a New Shopping Centre, which I'll read, which sort of imagines that I have been commissioned to perform 5 poems at the opening, at the sort of ribbon-cutting ceremony for a newly opened shopping centre. And I wrote them at around the time I was living in Exeter and visiting some friends in Bristol, and this giant new shopping centre opened in Bristol. I moved up to this about 6 years ago. I moved up to Birmingham. Was absolutely flabbergasted by the size of the bull ring and the sort of terrifying scale of it. That it was kind of a sort of latter-day cathedral to just selling shit to us. And the sort of design. There are lots of essays on kind of architecture blogs. You can read a line about how shopping centres are deliberately designed so that you can get lost in them, so that you can sort of go wandering around and then kind of find that you're in a place where there doesn't seem to be any stairs and there's just a massive hole and you don't really know where to go. And you think, oh, there's a candle shop, I might buy some candles, or there's Build-A-Bear, I could do Building a Bear, and maybe buy some cashew nuts. And then you just buy more and you leave just feeling bewildered and sad and soiled and upset. And in many ways, a library, and that's what I really liked about this library actually when it opened, is it's kind of the opposite of a shopping centre. You can still sort of get lost in it, I guess. Slightly confusing, but in a rather lovely way, and you can sort of get lost and then think, oh, I might read some philosophy or something, and leave feeling elevated on wings of thought and human achievement, and that's a much better thing, and you haven't spent any money at all, and that's great. It's a nice thing. And it's not, and I don't mean to sort of lapse into a kind of lazy anti-capitalism. I mean to sort of lapse into a vigorous, hard-working anti-capitalism, I suppose. So this is the first one. I'll just read them straight through. If you were going to clap in between them, don't. I'll just read straight through the 5 of them, okay? Because it's easier that way. I guess. 5 poems for a new shopping centre. Part 1, the Magdalen Balustrades. Where peacocks mount statues of peacocks and stagger away astounded with chipped beaks, I put on my blindfold and ran as fast as I could. My psychiatrist says I can't liken you to an ant farm, so I liken you to my heart, shoes my red blood cells. Our bodies coincide into a bait ball, and we absorb the nimbus of silvery light where a god hailed a taxi. Policemen walk home in tears without their shoes. Everything is a special offer, until eventually not getting a callous and sarcastic comment or not getting tweaked on the nose is a special offer. The smiles of the stuffed animals and knowing, scared too. I fling myself into a glass obelisk where you may purchase this and other titles. Part 2. Holes. This is vaguely based on Baudelaire's poem Drink with an exclamation mark after it. So it's holes with an exclamation mark. I'll try to say it enthusiastically. Holes. You are filled with giant holes that make us secretly want to jump. Doyen of the inner maniac. Holes more sublime than a cathedral. You should consider changing your name to The Holes. I will if you will. It is our most remarkable feature. You are shot through with holes, replete with holes, as my work is with violence. Bang. See, my eye takes in every shop from every floor when I am in you. But what captures the eye most is the holes themselves. Like a performance artist drawing attention to the act of performance, the eye plunges through your holes like a great bear losing its footing on a waterfall. Your ever-blessed holes. I will drop household appliances into them. Will they ever be filled? No. I will drop items of clothing and shoes. I will drop laptops and Blackberries and high-definition televisions. Who can measure your holes? There is no tape measure long enough to measure your hole. The tape measures have fallen into you. I too head first towards stone frogs. The girl from the candle store picks up pieces of my crunchylicious skull. Lo, there is no end. Lo, there is no beginning. Hooray. Part 3. Your designers feel sad sometimes. Your designers feel sad sometimes on ancient grey mornings, their coffee either too weak or too strong, or a combination of too weak and too strong, because they put in too much coffee and didn't let it brew for long enough. They blink in their long, thin gardens, the dew seeps into their moccasins, their legs ache. Part 4. This one's from the point of view of snow, the atmospheric condition, snow. Part 4. Letter from Snow. Dear shopping centre, I don't usually write to anything, but I feel that you are making a horrible mistake. Can you hear the starling cackle as if charged by the electric high wire it perches on? As the dove betokens peace, so the starling municipality. I digress, which is something you just don't do, hence my concern. Yours sincerely, Snow. Part 5. My fake erudition. The ancient king was cursed and turned into a jar of honey. The Prime Minister himself dug the drainage basin. The courtiers were renowned for their dislike of the letter K. My darling shopping centre, when they award for your design, at least you were honest enough to declare you didn't understand. Honesty is going to be more prized than any award, even if somebody is honestly a complete shit. Just you wait. Your frosted glass reminds us of that. You are a dozen stupid castles. We, your exhausted kings and queens, playing chess with our grey, salivating dogs. It's been their move for centuries. Thank you. I'm going to read a short bit of a poem by Inga Christensen, who is a Danish poet, and she's a contemporary poet. She's writing, as we speak, probably. I expect Inga Christensen's writing it now. And I'm trying to familiarise myself with more Scandinavian poetry, because it occurred to me last year that I'd never read any. I don't think, apart from maybe the old sagas. I don't read any contemporary. And Christensen's quite influenced by the Beats. And this whole book, It, is kind of about kind of comparing the built landscape with the natural landscape in a way. And it's a fairly beautiful piece. I'll just read a couple of little prose poems from this page. In a way, the city is a mass, a porous mass, a lump with cavities and crevices, with holes, shafts, canals, and tubes, with tunnels, hollows, substrata, introverted chambers, conjoined containers, tentatively hung up, functioning at last, serving mainly to preserve and snugly enclose the purposely built-in inhabitants, to group them, separate them, give them a place to be while they wait. In a way, the city is a petrification, a hollow arrangement, a calcified land sponge of concrete, whose labyrinthine branchings and cul-de-sac force the provisionally present inhabitants to search. This search spreads over networks of roads, buses, trains, via front doors to stairs, elevators, landings, through halls, corridors at last, through front and back rooms to rooms for waiting. In a way, the city is a labyrinth of lesser labyrinths whose provisionally mobile inhabitants keep the fiction in order, move in measure, for instance toward factories, appropriately, regularly, bound, for instance maintained in time and space by provisionally present things, moving in measure, appropriately, regularly, bound to the fiction maintained by the inhabitants. In a way, the city is a fiction, a system of functions functioning just to function, so something else can function, and because something else functions, a system of fictions feigning just to feign, so something else can feign, and because something else feigns. The provisionally functioning fiction kept in provisional order by provisionally feigning offices, etc., until the fiction functions. Thank you. So I think I'll read this one. I'm going to censor it slightly. And it's called, okay, I won't then. It's called, yeah, okay, that's fine. It's called You Cities of Fucking Idiots. It's not big or clever to swear, sorry, but it's from the point of view of one of the characters in it. And it's, and I'll read it because it's a piece that I wrote soon after moving to Birmingham and being entertained by the array of street preachers that I encountered in the centre at times. So it's a sort of vaguely permutational poem where I go through 8 different street preachers on 8 different days, and it's only passingly in reference to the actual people. It may be sort of composite of all of the different street preachers that I've ever encountered, I guess, used in different bits. That's a terrible introduction. Sorry, my God, what's wrong with me? So it's a poem in and through 8 street preachers. The first brandishes a filthy mirror. He is covered in a layer of powdered moth. He has wet dog smell. He shouts repent and criticises people who are buying flat-screen televisions. That's right, he says, that's what you need, stuff that's more flat. Make stuff flatter. Girls have their photos taken with him, one arm around his shoulder, the other giving a thumbs up. Look at their smiles. Are they really smiling? I love that guy. He's crazy. He's crazy. He has bits of teddy bear stitched to his army surplus jacket. I love it. I love him. Everything will be better, I think, if we just all walked our dogs more. They are bored and need the exercise. The second daubs slogans on a sandwich board. She wields it behind her. TV equals Antichrist, internet equals Tower of Babel with no vowels. The tobacconist donates the sweepings. She is overlooked by blindless apartments inhabited by exhibitionists exposing themselves to one another. No harm in ice cream. Did she just say no harm in ice cream? No harm in asking. The Arse King lives in apartment 203B. He moons from his second floor window, a crown of tinfoil perched on his lower back. You're not even one of the authentically disenfranchised, we say to her. Our cigarettes are slightly better than hers. The third lists, as in to the left, as in writes lists, a sharply dressed parboiled Dutchman. He records every passerby and their sin, slack-jawed sensualist, morbid gastropod, malignant polymath. On balance, he's correct. He manages an online franchise called the Baby Fans of Dracula. He sells bibs, milk bottles, baby-sized bat wings, all emblazoned with a logo designed by his friend, a designer. He preaches the serene bricolage. He loves television, especially really awful television. I just want to go for a drink today. I want the frail joy of drinking. The world's got a headache, he mutters to me. The fourth wanders around city centres on Saturday nights shouting, "You fucking idiots, your cities are fucking idiots. Last week, Bristol, next week, Sheffield." Look out for him in a city near you. He has a sword made of gold. All of his money went on this gold sword, but he is fine without a job. I've always been upset by the angels with swords, I tell him. There are invisible things everywhere waving their arms in alarm. When did we stop protecting one another? It's all going to be fine if we can just find the last two fragments of the deleted animated feature film. I think there is a clue in your mattress. This is just a ploy to get you into bed. The fifth is college-trained and gives PowerPoint presentations at non-denominational churches. Approach, infiltration, re-education. The child gangs must choose between the factories with their seemingly benign wardens and him with his free donuts. He has a skateboard. This is mindless superstition. He's anti-pilgrimage. When you talk to him, he's so anti-pilgrimage that it spoils your beer. You are so anti-pilgrimage, you say to him. The pilgrimage implies all kinds of things the anti-denominational church is dead against, he says. It construes them as idol worship, etc. But I can tell that my companions think I'm as bad as he is for even wanting to talk about it. Apostates, I mutter into my pint. The sixth, a former television producer, pours a carton of non-dairy creamer into his coffee and says, "I think this will be a great time for outsiders." With that haircut, we snortle, but then we feel bad. Our hair isn't that great either. There's so much going on. He takes a crisp, reduces it into a fine paste with some other crisps, molds them into a tiny model crisp factory, takes a camera and zooms in way too far and pretends that there are ancient alien monuments upon them. What's the flavour? You are totally missing the point. He is sallow. He looks like he lives on sticks of rock with insults printed through them. A great time for outsiders, eh? Say the outsiders, swiftly changing allegiance. The seventh is an 8-year-old boy. He teaches in the Cultural Studies department, having received his PhD at the age of 5. A notoriously easy marker, he convenes a popular module called The Campus in a Funhouse Mirror, satirical representations of the university and contemporary literature. His mother is on hand to shield his eyes. The eighth wears a flak jacket and throws tennis balls into the crowd, and if one hits you, you're cursed. He can say, "What did you expect to find here?" in 11 languages and 15 further regional dialects. We all think these things, but he's the only one brave enough to say them, says an idiot. The outsiders are working on their autobiographies, and I'm engraving the following into the chapel pilasters. There is something a little bit establishment about autobiographies in and of themselves, n'est-ce pas? But, on the other hand, I'm so sick of having opinions about anything. Better, in the end, to have broken bread with you in your non-existent boardrooms without your even realising it. Thank you. I never read that one. Like, sometimes you think, I'll read a poem that I've never read before, and then about halfway through you realise why, and it's too late. You can't just bail on it, so you stick it through. I'll read a Roy Fisher poem, and I'll read one more of mine. Thank you so much for listening. It's delightful. And this is a little Roy Fisher poem called North Area from his long poem City, which is beautiful. North Area. Those whom I love avoid all mention of it, though certain gestures they've in common persuade me they know it well, a place where I can never go. No point in asking why or why not. I picture it, though. There must be dunes with cement walks, a twilight of aluminium, among beach huts and weather-stained handrails, much glass to reflect the clouds, and a glint of blood in the cat ice that holds the rushes. The edge of the city, a low hill with houses on one side and rough common land on the other, stretching down to where a dye works lies along the valley road. Pithead gears thrust out above the hawthorn bushes, Everywhere prefabricated workshops jut into the fields and the allotments. The society of singing birds and the society of mechanical hammers inhabit the world together, slightly ruffled and confined by one another's presence. Thanks. That's good. Sorry, my phone is going off to say I've got 1 minute left. That's great. That's good timing. I'm going to read a 1 minute poem. It's sort of a vaguely schmaltzy, sentimental poem called Leatherbound Road. And I wrote it partly because my editor of this collection told me that he wanted me to write something different. He challenged me to write a poem without irony. He said, I want you to try to write something that at least sort of tries to take your poetry in a slightly different direction instead of just repeating what you've been doing for the last 8 years over and over again. Which was a bit hurtful, but I sort of, we'll try and do that. And also my brother-in-law was getting married and asked me to read something at his at the ceremony. So the two briefs kind of coincided, and it's basically a love poem. It's my first attempt at trying to write a love poem, and it's set vaguely in the city, and it's about coincidence. It's about all the ludicrously arbitrary things that lead to meeting the people who end up being incredibly significant to you, and the kind of the main coincidence that it sort of revolves around. The fact that my brother-in-law, whose wedding I was reading at, he met his wife-to-be because he was let out of work early for good behaviour or something, and he was walking home, and he walked down a street that he doesn't normally walk down. This was in London, and there was a bar, and the light in the bar just seemed particularly attractive, so he went in there, and he may easily not have done that. He could have easily just gone a different way home, and he would never have met. And also, I met my wife because she missed her grades for Cambridge, so we went to the same university. She got a C in her A-level biology, and if she'd had a really good day and got an A in her A-level biology, she probably would have married somebody much better with a degree from Cambridge. So yay me. And it uses the conceit of a kind of lousy Victorian novel, so not like Middlemarch or the other good ones, but one that we don't really read anymore because it's too full of coincidences to actually have any kind of narrative power. But still, all these books were sort of terribly well produced, and sometimes you go into a pub that has a load of Victorian novels that look very convincing, but they're really, really quite bad. And it's called Leatherbound Road, which kind of combines the idea of roads with the binding of a book, and that's a complete analysis of the poem before I've read it, which is a stupid thing to do. Should anybody ask me how we met, I'll read them Ansel Adams on photography. I'll say it's in the way the artist brings out of the landscape what the frame brings out of the painting, which is to say you bring out the best in me, but not the way the Maillard reaction brings out the best in food through the combination of amino acids reducing sugars and heat. No, it's more the way the right wine brings out the right light on the terrace, and the scene reflected in your eye places me front and centre, peering in, trying to describe the colour. It's what the singer does between the words that makes the words and not just words. The way the crows, the current stud, the risen green don't startle as I cycle through and crunch the gears. The Canada goose that turns its neck 180 to rifle through its feathers Rolodex. The way distracted weavers weave their hair into the tapestry. A chess move made 6 hours ago that only makes sense now. The way the symphony opens up only when you know what's coming next, your place in it, and why, or not. The way the past's not even past, and looking back, I overlooked the beauty of the worst of it. The exam flunked, the form misfiled, the blown bulb and the curtain drawn, which gave the bar its votive glow. The way that led with more coincidence and happenstance than a minor Victorian novel, and yet with the absolute conviction of its binding and with gratitude to you. Thank you.
thoughts I have of you tonight, Walt Whitman. For I walk down the side streets under the trees with a headache, self-conscious, looking at the full moon. In my hungry fatigue and shopping for images, I went into the neon Fritz supermarket, dreaming of your enumerations. What peaches and what penumbras, whole families shopping at night, aisles full of husbands, wives in the avocados, babies in the tomatoes, and you, Garcia Lorca, what were you doing down by the watermelons? I saw you, Walt Whitman, childless, lonely old grubber, poking among the meats in the refrigerator and eyeing the grocery boys. Eyeing the grocery boys. I heard you asking questions of each. Who killed the pork chops? What price bananas? Are you my angel? I wandered in and out of the brilliant stacks of cans, following you, and followed in my imagination by the store detective. We strode down the open corridors together in our solitary fancy, tasting artichokes, possessing every frozen delicacy, and never passing the cashier. Where are we going, Walt Whitman? The doors close in an hour. Which way does your beard point tonight? I touch your book and dream of our odyssey in the supermarket and feel absurd. Will you walk all night through solitary streets? The trees add shade to shade, lights out in the houses, we'll both be lonely. Will we stroll dreaming of the lost America of love past blue, automobiles and driveways, home to our silent cut? Ah, dear Father Greybeard, lonely old courage teacher, what America did you have when Sharon quit pawning his ferry and you got out in a smoking bank and stood watching the boats disappear on the black waters of Lethe? But I had to do that one in response to Luke's supermarket poems. What is above is below. What is without is within. And what is to come is in the past. Tall, deep tree green, branch and leaf, South, soil, earth, sea. Soil, earth, sea. Soil visible, hidden, breathing, sucking, bud, ooze, sunk down. Light, dark, bright decay, laugh, tear, rain, vein, mud, branch, root. What is above is below. What is without is within. What is to come is in the past. These wooden carvings displayed in their endless shells await, with each uncut branch, the carver's life. That was a Timothy Leary poem, The Tree Above and the Tree Below. Timothy Leary being the main source of inspiration provider for a whole generation of psychedelic psychonauts. I wrote this song, I worked for a while in a library, in a college library. I just landed this on these guys. I worked for a while in a college library, and it was during the summer. Nobody goes into a college library during the summer. It was a very nice place to be working. And it was sort of academic stuff, but they also had like old collections of Steinbeck and the Beat Generation stuff. So I started to read these, and when I was reading it was like Tortilla Flat and Cannery Row, and I was thinking about that saintlyhood of the bums and the down and outs. So I thought to myself, I could be a hobo, and I wrote this song called Vagabond's Lullaby, and it's about the saintlyhood of the down and out in the street. Disguise off whiskey breath and bloodshot eyes, and I tracked on that old bitter peddler for that magic herb I idolize. So now I can settle down in my tractor tire with my beer, my herb, and the sun climbing higher. I'm a drinker, I'm a smoker, I'm a waster by my trade. The only things I keep, things I'm taking to the grave. Same forgotten nature, my beliefs too plain to tell. What you might call, what you might call, what you might call a free man. Like every other beat that gets rejected from the bars, Tuline's all strong cider, I socialize beneath the stars. No money and no job, no home and no cherie. Hell, it's good enough for Jesus, and it's good enough for me. I'm a drinker, I'm a smoker, I'm a waster by my trade. The only things I keep are those things I'm taking to the grave. Seen forgotten nature, my beliefs too plain to tell. What you might call, what you might call, what you might call a free man. Yes, I get up when I wake up, I sleep when I'm tired, I eat when I'm hungry, and I drink when I can. All I say is fiction, so I've never had to lie. And all I do is acting, so I've never had to sin. Yes, I'm a drinker, I'm a smoker, I'm a waster by my trade. The only things I keep are those things I'm taking to the grave. Save for God and nature, my beliefs too plain to tell. And what you might call, what you might call, what you might call a free man. Steve Tromans and Simon Kingner. Desolation, my mind is clear as a cloudless sky. Time then to make home in the wilderness. What have I done but wander with my eyes in the trees? So I will build wife, family, and seek for neighbours. Or I perish of lonesomeness, or want of food, or lightning, or the bear must tame the heart and wear the bear. And maybe, maybe make an image of my wandering, a little image, shrine by the roadside to signify the traveller that I live here in the wilderness, awake at home. Desolation by Allen Ginsberg, and accompaniment by Steve Tromans and Simon King. Telephone because I became unprepared for this. It's been a very beat night in that it's been boys reading boys, and so I thought I should leave this with a very famous poem by a very wonderful poet. You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may tread me in the dirt, but still, like dust, I'll rise. Does my sassiness upset you? Why are you beset with gloom? 'Cause I walk like I've got oil wells pumping in my living room. Just like moons and like suns, with the certainty of tides, just like hope springing high, still I'll rise. Did you want to see me broken, bowed head and lowered eyes, shoulders falling down like teardrops, weakened by my soulful cries? Does my haughtiness offend you? Don't you take it awful hard, 'cause I laugh like I've got gold mines digging in my own backyard. You may shoot me with your words, You may cut me with your eyes, you may kill me with your hatefulness, but still like her I'll rise. Does my sexiness upset you? Does it come as a surprise that I dance like I've got diamonds at the meeting of my thighs? Out of the huts of history's shame I rise, up from a past that's rooted in pain I rise. I'm a black ocean leaping and wide, welling and swelling I bear in the tide, leaving behind nights of terror and fear. I rise into a daybreak that's wondrously clear. I rise, bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave. I am the dream and the hope of the slave. I rise, I rise, I rise, I rise. That's Maria Angelis, the Mellows. Thank you very much.